game, the world one game at a time. I'd like to introduce the panelists. To my right is Dr. Corey Clark. He's the Deputy Director of Research and Assistant Professor of Computer Science and Engineering at SMU, Guildhall. He's also the CTO of Balanced Media Technology. To his right is Paul Bettner, founder and CEO of Playful Corp. Previously, New Toy and Zynga. You might know his work. Things like Boards with Friends. Kate Edwards, the CEO of Geogrify. Katie Stone Perez, she's the Director of Mixer Interactive, Developer Success for Microsoft. She also helped launch the Xbox. Very much an awesome career there. And Travis Eriksen, the Executive Director of Child's Play. And that's the charity arm of PAX. In case you didn't know, and they probably have the best t-shirts ever, so make sure you go back and take one home. So thank you for coming. It's an honor to be here. My name is Robert Atkins. I'm the CEO of Balanced Media Technology. I've been making games like a lot of these fine people on the stage for 25 years. I've been very fortunate to work on a lot of groundbreaking titles. Doom Nukem 3D, Quake, Circle Armageddon, Counter-Strike, Sin, Heavy Metal, a lot of things in the FPS world. And overall, helped create over 30 titles, co-designing and co-creative directing. And, in all 50 titles. But the reason why you haven't heard of me, like a lot of developers, we're way more comfortable behind a screen than standing in front of a crowd at PAX. So I'm super nervous, so I'll work out the bugs as we go. And so about 5 years ago, I came to this turning point in my career where I just didn't want to make games anymore. And not that I didn't love the creative process, I just didn't want to use my talents and passion to create things that didn't have purpose. So I switched, something happened to me. And my big revelation was I needed to make a difference somehow with the work. I wanted to create something that had real purpose. So I began to ask myself, what the heck does that mean? And I read books like Reality is Broken by Jamie Oliver, where she talks about and theorizes how gamers and gaming will save the world one day. And after reading her vision, it became clear I didn't need to stop creating games. I just needed to figure out how to add value to each and many gamers who are playing the games that I created. And in that journey, that quest to find, what that meant, I met these 5 amazing people. And so each of them have an even more amazing story to share in the history of making a difference with their work beyond just entertainment. And when I met each of them, they were already doing this. They were already impacting the world with their organizations, the way they thought, and the way they're evolving our industry. They represent the thread of that story that will be woven and define the new reality, the one that Jane wrote about. And I asked them here to share their vision of the industry, what the organizations are doing today to lead that change, and perhaps we can get a glimpse of the blueprint for how gamers are going to save the world in the future. So I broke this topic down into 3 areas: cause, development, and community. And I want to start with cause. Travis, when I met you a few years ago, it was one of the most amazing encounters. And when I learned more about your organization, the Child's Play Charity, it was evident that you guys were leading the way when it came to how to connect gamers and cause into the community. And I would really like you to share some of your thoughts on your organization, what you're doing today, and what type of value you continue bringing to the community and how you see that blossom.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know about Child's Play, we've been around since 2003, so we're actually older than PAX, which started in 2004. We work with the gaming community, and we support now over 160 children's hospitals across the globe, as well as over 100 women's domestic violence shelters. And we started as just a charity that was supported through the community and returned consoles, games, toys, and things like that to the hospitals that we partnered with. But in the last 3 years, we visited over 100 children's hospitals and had an opportunity to sit down and meet with the child life staff and learned that we as gamers can actually do a lot more. And so one of the things that we've done that ties in with this panel so well is we put together a therapeutic game guide that was to teach the child life staff, who is, I always like to say, it's kind of like your mom or your 3rd grade teacher who loves kids, wants to take care of them. My wife is a kindergarten teacher, so it's safe to say that. Loves kids, loves to take care of them, but doesn't necessarily know how games can actually be used. When you have a conversation with a gamer, especially at a place like PAX, about how games can really affect your mood and how you're feeling and bring you up when you're feeling down, and if you're really anxious about the thing, they can calm you down and sort of lower that level of anxiety. This guide is a tool we created to help them understand what games to pick and what features to look for inside of games. So that when they're working with kids, they're not just saying, hey, you're bored playing a game, but games can actually become a real targeted piece of therapy. And so we've been pushing that education with the child life staff, and then a piece that we've been able to share not just with the gaming community that supports Child's Play, but then also with developers as we have conversations with them and talk to them about aspects that can be added into games to help address these different symptoms that kids can face.
Thank you. Your work is amazing. Please go out there and buy a t-shirt. Good call that was a charity, right?
Yes.
So, I know I'm going to sell you on hockey over here now. So, Kate Edwards, if you don't know Kate Edwards, she's one of the top female influencers in our industry. She's an amazing person who's invited to go speak all over the world. She just got back in Tel Aviv, which amazes me, and even more places in between. And through your travels and the wide range of advocacy topics that you touch, including your work at takethis.org, how do you see games empowering cause and making real change in the world?
Well, I think, just to give a little more context, I'm a geographer that's worked in the game industry for 25 years, as of this year, and basically doing what I call content culturalization. So you effectively help game developers make games that don't offend politically or culturally, and that's not that I'm trying to make them PC and cleansed. Basically, I'm trying to help game developers get their creative vision to as many people around the world as possible. Because sometimes there's things they'll put in the game that might be problematic in different cultures. They don't intend to piss anyone off, but it just is nothing part of the creative process. So I'm just there to advise them and say, hey, if you want to sell like into this entire region or culture, you might want to tweak this one little thing, and then you're going to be good to go. And so part of my work, well, a big part of my work throughout all my career has been about trying to respect the local culture through the medium. Because games, we know that games are an interesting cross-section between some degree of social pushback, because some people still view games as controversial in different ways, or causal in some ways, which, we're not going to have that debate here, but we know that games can be a very positive force, and I like to see games as being also not just a positive force in terms of what they can do to us emotionally and physically and whatnot, but also in terms of being ambassadors of culture and being ambassadors of respect. Developing more than anything, I see games as an empathy engine. And it's one of the greatest powers of video games is to develop empathy between, even if with alien cultures depicted in the game, it draws out a certain emotional response that can be very positive and really strong and reflect on how we view cultures in our own world. And so that's a really important thing to me. And also, I was the executive director of the International Game Developers Association for 5 years, and in that work, more of an advocacy focus is basically trying to change the culture of our industry. There's issues in this industry that need to be fixed, working conditions and other things that we don't need to dive deep into here. But basically, the way I view is that games have this incredible power, even within our industry, in a sort of recursive fashion, that we, as game developers, can also learn from the games that we're making, that we can change our industry. And sometimes I think we're not, as there's a phrase they use in software, just eat your own dog food, which is basically something you do when you're testing a build of a program. Sometimes I don't think we do that enough in our own industry to learn the lessons. We're trying to show incredible stories and depth and empathy and all that in our games, and yet we don't really model that in our industry, and that bothers me. So there's a lot of things that we can do with games.
So, just for the record, I'd love you to talk about some of the games you worked on and all fanboys and fangirls in here. They want to know, like, what have you created?
Oh, I've worked on a lot of stuff over the years. All the Halos, Age of Empires, all of that stuff, Fable, Forza, all the BioWare games for the last 15 years. I'm finishing up work on Anthem right now. Yeah, a lot of stuff. Rise of the Tomb Raider more recently. Yeah, the list goes on and on. A lot of stuff.
Thank you. So, Katie, when I first met you, had a conversation. You were telling me about your work internally at Microsoft, and became really clear right away that you're the leading voice inside the gaming, Microsoft gaming, when it comes to doing more with gaming than just entertaining. And I would love you to share some of your accomplishments and some of the things that you've been part of to push that message forward and make change internally at Microsoft.
Yeah, thank you. So, Perez. So I actually joined Microsoft 17 years ago, and my background was actually in child psychology, so I never realized that I could actually have a job making video games. And I just happened to come upon a recruiter in my senior year who talked to me about coming out and working in the gaming division. And I had actually always been a gamer my entire life. And so what I really found is that there was this amazing opportunity to look at our products and look at the people we were touching and look at the stories we were telling and how could we use our products to create empathy. I so agree with what you said. I think video games are one of the greatest tools that we actually have in our toolbox today to help teach people empathy. Because not only are you going through that experience, and sometimes it's an experience we really don't want to have to personally go through ourselves to understand that day-to-day, right? Like Papers, Please or something like that. And so you get that deep sense of empathy. And so I've had this amazing opportunity to get to work on a bunch of different products. I helped create Xbox Live Arcade, which was digital gaming on the Xbox for the very first time. I helped invent Kinect and HoloLens technologies. I helped run the ID at Xbox program for several years. And now I work on the Mixer side, where we're really looking at rethinking gaming and community and what it means to come together. And Microsoft fundamentally believes that gaming is for everyone. And we have so many passionate individuals. One of the reasons I've stayed at Xbox for 17 years is there's so many people within our gaming organization that are so passionate about helping make gaming for everyone. And so it's just been so cool for me to actually get to be on the journey with all of these amazing individuals. We have things now like we're showing the Xbox Adaptive Controller, where if you guys haven't seen it, it's really cool. I think the Child's Play guys actually have it out.
Yeah, it's on our booth.
Yeah, and so this is a controller where even if you don't have full mobility to sit and hold a game stick, you can use this, even if it's one or two buttons. You guys can game together. We have co-op mode on Xbox so that you can actually co-pilot and play together. So when my daughter was super young and she couldn't make jumps, I could sit there and I could game with her. And instead of grabbing the controller back from her and doing it for her, I could just on my controller have it linked with hers and just help her on those jumps where she needed help. So it's so cool to actually get to work on a platform with so many amazing people that believe in that, and it's fun to see. And just most recently, we actually helped release the game called I Hope, and that game is actually made for young kids who are battling cancer to help empower them on their cancer battle. So I've seen so many amazing examples of both the industry coming together as well as the end result of the products that can really have this great impact on gamers.
That's awesome. Incredible background, and the fact that you've touched development and you've had your feet in that area, especially you really understand that's where change really can begin, right? As developers, we need to be the change that we want to see, as Paul would say. And so as Creative Words with Friends, one of the things that you helped change was you helped create and connect people that never even considered themselves gamers. Like that, I don't know how many people play that game worldwide now, but it's one of the largest multiplayer games of all time. You've also additionally launched and helped create technologies and games on Oculus Rift. Money's Tale was one of those amazing things. So as a developer, and you started 25 years ago, how do you see the development community evolving to match the industry evolution?
In my own career, I seem to continue to be drawn to these places where the definition of what a video gamer is changing and evolving and expanding. Those frontiers are where I have the most joy as a creator. The first game I worked on was Age of Empires. We didn't actually know each other at the time, but we were working on the same game. And the mission that we had at Ensemble Studios was, there were other popular strategy games at the time, games like StarCraft and Warcraft and Doom 2, and so this was a genre that was already popular. And at Ensemble, we had some early discussions about what that game was going to be, We were drawn to fantasy, science fiction, kind of typical gamer topics. But we had this vision of trying to reach an even larger audience, and we chose a historical context for that game. And we actually it was kind of this internal fight. We were putting all this energy into creating a game that was bright and colorful and accessible, and we knew we had the audience already that was going to love it as a strategy game, but we were picturing in our head was reaching an even larger audience of people that might not normally be drawn to a game like this through these choices that we were making, and it worked. That was the coolest thing. There's tons of hardcore strategy fans that love the game, but we would get letters from like grandmas that would play the game and tell us how much they love it. Age of Empires was used to teach in schools and was kind of a worldwide phenomenon, not just based here in the US. For me, fast forwarding, then when I started the company that made Boards of Friends, I just saw it as kind of a continuation of that same pursuit. When I first saw the iPhone, I think a lot of people saw a revolutionary phone, and I just saw like, this is going to be a Game Boy in everybody's pocket, and this will be the ultimate platform for us to be able to reach a large audience and where gaming was going to expand. And I know this probably all sounds obvious in hindsight, but at the time I think people thought I was having like a midlife crisis, because phone games then were like flip phone games, right? Like bowling and Snake and Solitaire, whatever. The industry was really, really horrible, actually, the margins and everything for those games. But what I saw in the iPhone and in that revolutionary device was a lot of those barriers coming down. Like if you put an Xbox controller in my hand, I know exactly what to do. It's the most comfortable place for me. But I've found over the years that so much of the audience I want to reach, that's actually a barrier. Like that Xbox controller has like 20 buttons on it or something. It's pretty overwhelming, especially if you didn't grow up playing games. And there's this entire world of entertainment and connection locked behind these barriers. And it's why we did virtual reality gaming too in the last couple of years. Even though, there's this hype, boom, bust cycle with VR, but where these platforms are heading, where they're just a pair of glasses, like I see several of you wearing in the audience, that'll be the ultimate platform for entertainment that I think we can, and the largest audience we can possibly reach. So I know it's still several years in the future, and if we talked about what that future is going to be like, I think it would just sound like science fiction. But then again, an iPad would have sounded like science fiction to any of us 10 years ago too. So I love those places where those barriers are coming down, where the audience is expanding, and where we can reach new people and new players who aren't necessarily gaming today.
So is that the real value when it comes to accessibility, is to reach people no matter what age, no matter what diversity? Why does that add value back to us, like as a community, as an industry?
So my own personal experience with that is that the voices of our community and the people that are playing our games has gotten broader over time, and that's created a much richer audience for us to reach. And Age of Empires was really popular. It was like 30 million units or something like that now, and it's still, it's remastered on Steam, and it's popular again. Words of Friends was, I think it's over 300 million players now. It's still the most popular iPhone game in the world. It's got about 12 or 13 million people that play it every day. The next is Candy Crush at 8 million. And so it's just like a fundamentally different, like a step function to a much larger audience. And that audience isn't necessarily hobbyists. Like when I was making games, when we were making games Age of Empires, however many years ago, we were mainly looking for people who chose gaming as a hobby. But our industry is like in a golden age now. Most of the folks that we are looking at as our customers, they've never known a world that didn't have video games in it. They've grown up playing video games. That's why I think you're seeing these incredible cultural phenomenon moments happening with games like Fortnite, where that game went from 0 to 130 million players in 6 months. And then that's happening like every year. That used to be like, get those moments every 5 or 10 years in our industry, and now it's constant.
So definitely a change, not only in the devices and the digesting and the accessibility of the UI. There's other technology that is definitely included into our gaming experiences. And then Dr. Clark and I, we've had a lot of discussion about the power of things like citizen science, the ability to actually solve real world problems you're familiar with Eve Online, they're about to publish an article about all the processing that they did looking at gene imagery. And so there's a lot of amazing things that gaming is doing now outside of just entertainment. And so I'd like you to maybe talk, Dr. Clark, a little bit as developers, what can we do to drive the change and so that the cause and purpose is embedded into the experience?
I think to make that happen, one of the first things that has to be done is it's about breaking down the barrier, like Paul said, but it's the barrier to developers. We have to create the tools and capability to integrate into the existing development pipelines out there. So having things built out in Unity or Unreal that allow for that connection into citizen science and data to actually connect to problems. And that's, our platform we're working on that balances is around that. It allows for citizen science or human computation aspects to take real data problems and integrate it right into the standard gameplay of video games. So the idea is that those games shouldn't be built necessarily with science as the game itself. It's just a factor of what happens. Just by playing the game, you're doing the computations that are required. The game developers are great at making highly engaging content that keeps people in words with friends. That's amazing. 300 million people, that's crazy. But whenever scientists try to do this, it's a different aspect. So the idea is that we need to find a way to bring those groups together. And really, it's amazing when you look at gaming itself and what it's capable of doing. It's capable of reaching and doing so much more. When you look at education and, they talk about game-based education, but I see gaming as moving well beyond what it's currently looked at as entertainment and thinking that in the future you won't hear the term game-based education, it will just be education. Because if you're going to teach somebody, teaching them with a game is the best way to get them involved in learning and really make that intuitive leap. Same thing with interfaces, game-based interfaces. The best interfaces are built in games. So I see that gaming is this paradigm that's shifting and being integrated into so many different aspects of our lives. And if we can just harness that capacity and capability by providing developers with the tools to integrate it directly into what they're already doing, then it really opens up the power and capability for us to have immense change and capacity to bring cause and problem-solving capability right to the millions of people that are playing every day.
Awesome. So, you mentioned to me in some of our previous conversations some of the work that you did at IDGA and also the recent stint in your teaching, and how you felt some frustration about how quickly developers were adopting practices and understanding of how they can do more than just entertain. And so they seem to be stuck in, you got to go get the new, greatest, latest action game, the next Fortnite. Can you talk about where we're at, you think, on the evolutionary track as developers when it comes from gaming to actually embrace this concept?
Well, I think part of it is that, societally, we are still in the mode where most games are seen as a form of entertainment, which we really need to start viewing games as a form of artistic self-expression, because that's really what they are. Games, in my view, if you want a definition, I call them a collaboratively created interactive art form. That's how I view games. And so art in other fields like film, literature, visual arts like painting, they have been given the full range and leeway to do basically anything. You can write books that are funny or sad or sci-fi or whatever, adventurous. Games, I think we are seeing a lot of games that are branching out into other areas, especially I think that's being driven a lot by the indie movement, independent game movement, because now that game tools have been democratized, you can download Unity or Unreal for free. A lot of the tutorials are up on YouTube or elsewhere, so I've met a lot of people who are self-taught in game development, and so by analogy, it's becoming as easy to make a game now to have that form of artistic self-expression as it is to go to an art store and buy canvas and paints and brushes and just kind of go at it. And now you can do that. That doesn't mean you're going to make a great painting. But you know what? It doesn't matter because it's you. It's your self-expression. Whether or not it has Rembrandt value or something, that's a whole other issue that's actually a matter of opinion more than anything. So the important thing is that we have that power to do that. And so I think in that, in the process that we're seeing, you're seeing a lot of indie games, like just a block away or so is the Seattle Indies Expo today in the Motif Hotel, where you'll see games that focus on things other than just pure entertainment and fun. There's tons of games that explore mental health issues. There's games that explore exploitation of human beings. I mean, there's a lot of games that do this through analogy, or they do it through other methods, that are really effective. So I think games, the more we can see games as not just a fun thing, and sometimes I know in the industry we even argue that the term game is a misnomer, because game for a lot of people instantly implies it's fun and enjoyable and entertaining. And oftentimes it is, but that doesn't mean it can't address really, really serious issues. Because again, back to the point about empathy, that's what games can do. And so I think that we are seeing more and more games that are allowing that sense of empathy. Like, what is it like to be a person from that particular country in that time period, having to go through that issue, or to be someone who's marginalized, or be someone who's underrepresented in the society, and see things through their eyes. I mean, for example, there's a really good game that came out a couple years ago called Revolution 1979, which is about the Iranian Revolution. And it's fascinating because you're going through the streets of Tehran right in the midst of the revolution, and learning what were people thinking, what exactly drove them to this tipping point in which they had a revolution. It gives you a much better insight into what actually happened. So I think that's part of the barrier that we have right now. And even among developers, I mean, naturally a lot of developers, they want a career, they want to make money off of their art and all that kind of stuff, but realizing that you don't just have to make a game that's just pure entertainment. It doesn't have to be another FPS or RPG or whatever. I mean, it can be those things, but then being brave enough to enter into other territories and other topics that's not typical. And we are starting to see it, it's slow.
Yeah, the game I Hope was actually created by a single individual who was actually an animator. He had never programmed, and he actually downloaded Unity and just decided to make the game because he wanted to change the reality for kids that were sitting in the hospital. And so I really want to put that to all of you in the room as well, is that if you have a story that you want to have be told, the tools have been democratized to a point where you really can get together. And there's so many other passionate individuals who will team up with you and help you on that journey. And as parents too, I also think using video games as a way to actually teach and educate our children is incredibly powerful. I've seen amazing yields from watching my kids play video games. Tenacity. My daughter went to ride a bike for the first time and she ran inside. And I was like, what are you getting? She came back out with Mario. And I was like, why are you getting Mario? And she put him in her basket and she said, because he taught me to never give up. Like, how cute is that? And that's real. She played Beyond Eyes for the first time, which is this beautiful story about a woman who's blind. She came in, I was like, Mommy, what are you playing? And I explained to her what it was like to be blind, and she actually hadn't really addressed that concept. She spent the entire day modeling what it was like to be blind. And now volunteers on a yearly basis with the annual convention for the blind. It's actually coming back up in September if anyone wants to volunteer. But so I've seen that. So as parents too, I think we also need to change our own perception of what video games can be, because when we actually let kids go and create these stories as well, they have to think about, just like we do as game developers, we have to think about, what is that user experience going to be for someone who's actually playing through this? How difficult am I going to make it? Who's my target audience? And so that actually in and of itself creates this great piece of empathy, because you have to think about those individuals who are going to be playing your content as well. So I think with this new democratization, like you said, it just creates this whole opportunity. So I challenge all of us in the room to look at how we spend more time creating.
Thank you. So I'm going to date myself. I think I already did 25 years. I started where the industry is definitely skewed metal, and it was definitely skewed toward making action games. 100 million people playing games worldwide in 96, 93, 96. Now there are 2.5 billion people playing games worldwide. The first time the females outnumber the males, and the average age is 27, around 27 years old. So things have changed, right? And part of that change is also the fact that the developers like us have aged. And we have families now, and we have seen the world differently, and we've been through those experiences where we spend all those days crunching and a lot of stress to try to just release product. And one of the things that really impressed me, Paul doesn't know this, but I went to his studio recently for a meeting, and a developer who's bringing family into the environment, because you can't fake creating product that is addressing your audience's desires and needs and passions if you're not living that as a developer yourself. So I'd like y'all to talk maybe a little bit about how we as developers are changing, as we grow older, as we mature, as our industry matures, and how that's being reflected back into the work that we create.
I just love that it's getting easier. We were talking about this earlier, but recruiting in our industry for developers that actually represent the audience that we want to reach. So for instance, as you mentioned, our audience is more female than male. It's been for most of the games that I've worked on over the last decade now. But it is really hard to build a studio that looks like the demographics of our audience. Our industry really didn't start there, and a lot of the practices that if we just kind of go through the normal channels for recruiting, we will get pretty much a singular candidate. It's just incredible, and we have to put a lot of effort into overcoming that. And honestly, we still have a long way to go as a studio, but it's something that's important to us. I don't think that we can make games for everyone like we want to if we're not actually represented internally. If we're not a studio that we want. So it is really important.
How do you feel in that area? Do you feel like things have changed because of the developers are maturing somehow, or the world's getting more tight? What do you think's going on?
Yeah, I think it's changed dramatically over my last 17 years in the industry. I remember joining and I was the only girl on a test team, right? And it was, there were even things like, kind of go be more like the boys in some ways, right? Because you had to go, they were all playing like Street Fighter every day. And I was like, no matter what I do, even though I'm a gamer, I'm never going to land that combo because I just haven't been practicing that for the last 20 years of my life, right? And I was super lucky that I actually came across an individual who was like, no. You have an expertise and a skill set that we hired you here for. You actually think differently, and that's what we need. And so actually being empowered to bring my voice early on was incredibly powerful. And I can look back at the products I've worked on and touched, and I can see my different voice impact those products, which is incredibly rewarding. And so that's one of the things, even as a manager now, on day one, I tell my staff, look, I've hired you because you have a voice and I want to hear it. And we have this opportunity, and we're going to be better because we're going to use our voices together. And it's led me to make much better products. But think about a world where we all showed up every day and were given that power of voice. And that's one of the things that even as video game creators, we can create this realm where everyone comes in and can have that voice. And that's, again, why I love this democratization and everything, because we can do that. As recruiting, it is still challenging. I will say I was super thrilled. We had a great intro class this year. That was a ton of amazing young women, a ton of other diverse individuals and diversity as well. That made me super happy to see. And I do see things changing. And I see the entire industry recognizing the importance of having those different voices on the team. But even more importantly, it's not just having them there, it's actually hearing their voice. And so that's what I'm seeing more and more. And that's giving me a lot of reward. And one of the groups I work with too is Girls Make Games, as you know. And that's been incredibly rewarding to see these girls come together and create video games over a 3-week summer camp during the summer. It's a great program. There's actually a portal, so if you want to go and just learn how to make a game in stencil, you can go to the Girls Make Games portal. Anybody can do it, and it will actually take you through on how to make a basic platformer, so you can actually make your own game. You can add your own story and everything that you want to do.
I just want to throw in, I don't have the game development chops that everybody on that side of the table has. I came from teaching, before I was at Child's Play, I was a middle school teacher for 15 years, and the last handful of years when I was teaching a STEM course that had game design as part of it. And in the very beginning years, I had all the girls in my class were the reluctant group when this unit came up. The boys were super excited and not into it, and the girls were like, the boys were into it, the girls were kind of like, this is not my thing. And then in my last years when I was teaching, it became more of a thing. The girls were excited and accepted to do it. So even down to that middle school level, that conversation is starting to change.
And it takes an entire effort, right? It's everything from, I love Helen who runs the Minecraft studio now. She talks about how we'll talk with a merchandiser and they'll say, hey, we want to take all the Steve merchandise and not Alex, who's the girl. And she's like, nope, if you take it, you take both pieces 50-50. And so it's small things like that, but it's just having the merchandise available to the kids, having them see their characters represented. When we look at Girls Make Games and we actually see the girls create their own characters, their own universes. And we actually look at the characters at the end, they're incredibly diverse and most of them are very visually representative of the girls themselves. And that's not a shock because there's this concept of that it looks like me moment, right? So many of us, even as a white straight female, I still see myself so reflected in the media that I'm constantly surrounded by. But think about so many individuals who don't see that representation. And so I think as video game developers, if we can create and empower people to feel deeper connections to the content and the worlds and the characters we're creating, we will actually grow our fan base instead of alienating them. But we've been very focused on this very narrow band window. And so I think we have to really work on creating those it looks like me moments.
It's not a hypothesis anymore, at least not in entertainment like we were talking about this morning. Any of y'all can see what's happened in film, TV, and comics over the last several years, where these studios have taken the risk to develop content that perhaps would have not gotten through major studio funding in the past, and they've been hugely rewarded for doing that. And I think the same opportunity exists in our industry when we have the courage to do that.
We're even seeing it at the University of Guildhall, the diversity of the classes as they become through have made it more diverse, higher female representation inside of it. And it's great because the games that are even being built as student projects are getting even more interesting and more diverse than what they're not just a first-person shooter style game. They're interesting platformers about plants and growth and just interesting concepts that you just wouldn't see without those different voices all being played together. So it's you're seeing it not just at the entry level, but at the universities that are pushing into the industry as well.
Fantastic. So that's, those are some key things about development, how it's changing, the narratives are changing, technologies being developed that can bring new ways to integrate into real world problem types. And really what we're doing is we're servicing the community, right? The community is ultimately who we'll service, and the community, and because of the game Playful and friends, and there's such a diversity of people now playing games that would never even consider themselves gamers whatsoever.
I still don't, by the way. most people that I talk to that play several hours with boards of friends will not use that word gamer to describe themselves. It's still kind of especially here in the West. It's one of the reasons we called our company Playful, is because the word game and gaming and gamer, it's changing, but it's still a negative, especially here in the West. The word play is something that most people accept as like part of the human condition. Of course, we should all play, but gaming is still, has a little bit of that negative connotation.
Yeah, and I ask people often when they say they're not a gamer, they always ask when you play with some friends, and if they do, I always let them know, well, yes, you are a gamer. And if you want some introduction to other games, we can do that as well. And that's the great thing, even, I think social gaming did that as well. There was like Farmville we were talking about earlier. There were a lot of people who were playing that would have never played a first-person shooter, but they got to experience something that the subject matter was inviting. So we're going to move to community, because that's the other big piece that we have to connect when it comes to making a difference in the world. And Travis, why do you think the gaming community, or fans or developers, are so enthusiastic about the games for good concepts, as demonstrated by the years of success of the organization?
Part of it comes with Child's Play's start, right? The origin of Child's Play was almost a spite stunt. In 2003, there was really bad video game news, and Mike and Jerry hanging out were like, hey, we got games, we play games and they don't make us crazy people. We're not, out shooting up new malls or anything like that. And at that particular time, there was just a big pushback in the media of games are murder simulators, and they're just, prepping people for that. So let's get our friends together and see if we can just raise some toys for Seattle Children's. And in just over 2 weeks, they raised $250,000 worth of toys and did the donation. And they tapped into that outlet where I think gamers were looking for that justification of this hobby that they have, and a chance to be able to say, this is something that I enjoy, and it was, well before we created this therapeutic game guide, but it's a piece that gamers could always speak to. This is why I'm playing these games. This is the emotional healing that I get out of it. It's a form of self-care that I'm doing, and being able to take part in raising money for Child's Play is a way for them to have that badge of pride that says, my hobby not only helps me, but I can use that same thing to turn around and help millions of kids in hospitals over the course of my gameplay as well. And it's that same community that builds, why people come back to PAX. It's that connection and having that feeling of an impact and putting this thing that you love and meeting and seeing the other people and being able to show to a whole city in Seattle. We would take over all of downtown for this show. And people see, the people who aren't part of the gamer community, even though they're probably playing Words with Friends on their lunch break, see us walking around in our cosplay, in our badges, see all that's going on, and they get that glimpse into what is this world that is going on. And it's a chance to really wave that flag of what this community can do.
So you use the word healing, and you guys probably won't talk about yourself, but I just want to tell you a story about these guys. So, you mentioned they worked on Quake and Doom and all these games, software games. The games that Robert and his team are creating right now are first-person shooters where players fight cancer. And so we, as a studio, we had a chance to make a wish with a young boy named Jimmy at our studio. That was a couple months ago. And all his wish was he just wanted to visit a game studio. And he was not in great shape and didn't have a great prognosis at all. So anyway, we set up a pretty great event. We invited these guys to join us and bring their games and alongside our games and have Jimmy come to our studio and play them. Well, anyway, Jimmy wasn't that interested in our games, as it turns out, as soon as he started playing the game that these guys brought along. And the game is basically, like I said, it's a first-person shooter where you run around and play and shooting cancer cells and bleeding out, and it's kind of like an inner space thing. And watching what happened that day with Jimmy at our studio playing this game, I've never seen anything like it. These guys we had talked before. I understood the theory behind the games, but Jimmy visibly was healthier after a couple hours of playing the games, and every time he shot one of those cancer cells, I swear he felt it. Like he was totally mentally and emotionally engaged in that experience of fighting his own cancer that he was seeing on the screen. It was a miraculous thing. And since then, there have been other studies that have shown this in other mediums, like people using VR to treat pain that's more effective than narcotics. The impact that an engaging game is probably almost every one of us in this room knows can have quite an impact on our emotional, mental, adrenal system, everything that gets involved in a great game. And seeing that impact, it just blew me away.
We have to tell how Jimmy's doing now.
His cancer is gone. It's just amazing. One of the things that we really believed in that experience was giving Jimmy a sense of hope would probably be a powerful thing. So we had business cards made up for him. We made him an honorary game developer, and we told him that he needed to come back because we were playtesting these games and he needed to help us make them better. He's been back to the studio 4 times now and has brought friends and is like, he's all like proud when he comes in, like, yeah, I helped work on this game. He has a level in the game now. And, it's been incredible.
That's awesome. So thank you for bringing that up. Corey, can you explain what underneath the game, what's happening in the background with the technology that you're creating?
Sure, so while Jimmy, and specifically in that game, while he was actually playing, decisions and things that he would do in the game would affect actually research and data going underneath it. He doesn't have to understand the research or the data or anything like that. We can connect that to many things. We're doing work with cancer research, macular degeneration, cybersecurity, all these sorts of different fields. And while you're actually playing the game and the decisions that you're doing, they're actually sorting, helping us with data, training, machine learning, all these different aspects. And the great thing about games is that in general, games are about problem solving. The things that you're doing are solving a problem, trying to master a skill or something like that. So all we do is find ways to connect the native things that are happening in games, but we're connecting them to real life problems and data. So that while you're spending your time playing an entertainment game, something that's truly fun and engaging, you can actually be impacting the world around you. And so that was one of the things with Jimmy. His work that he was actually doing while he was playing that game was actually reverse engineering the gene regulatory network, which is the key to start being able to make precision medicine, so medicines that are targeted specifically for you in cancer research.
That's awesome. So, Katie, I have a question when it comes back to, pulls back to community. Your new role is you're the director of Mixer, which is Microsoft's community and soon to be killer of Twitch. So,
It's community, we can all play together.
so how do you see, developers or streamers coming together to use the power of the community and to do things like bring purpose and cause to bear? And what are some of the success stories that you've seen through that process?
Yeah, so, the Mixer platform, the reason I love it is because it was actually started by two people who were really passionate fans in the Minecraft community, and they wanted a lower latency streaming platform because they actually wanted to have this deeper connection within their community. And so community is literally at the core of what created Mixer, and I actually love it because every day within our leadership meetings, we're constantly challenging ourselves, will this create a stronger and better community? And I love that we live that value. I think, similar to what you said, Travis, people want to take their passions and how they're spending time and see that connected to a greater purpose and a greater cause. One of the things, even with game streaming, like you love, tipping that streamer or donating or, subscribing to them because you're helping them in their journey on their daily basis. And they're creating that space for you to get to come and be a part of their community. And I think this is just the beginning. We're going to continue to see these communities build even larger than they are today. We're going to see games change to really take into account the fact that now you have thousands of people, hundreds of thousands even at times, watching someone play that game along with them. We have to recognize as game developers, it's not a single entity anymore. There are all these other people there, and how does their game actually change? And how is their reality changed because they are leading and driving that community? So I actually think we're just on the very beginning of this new kind of gaming forefront. And that's one of the reasons why I was so excited to go to Mixer and lead the interactivity team. Is because I think with that interactivity with those communities, we're going to just see some magic. And it's going to be one of those things, like you said with the iPod, like we don't know what it's going to be, but in 10 years we're going to look back and be like, oh, of course, that makes so much sense. But
and it's cool too. I mean, one of the things I did after I left the ITA last year, I joined Take This as a board member, and TakeThis.org deals with mental health in the game industry, both on the development side and on the gamer side. They're the ones who run the AFK room. It's up on the 6th floor of the convention center. It's like a quiet space, think like a mental health break. But we just launched this week the Take This Ambassadors program. And what they are is streamers from the community who basically step forward and say, hey, I want to do a better job at representing mental health issues because it comes up a lot in my stream. I get a lot of people in my comments, saying that they have depression or anxiety or how can you help me with this? There's a lot of streamers who are very open about these issues that they're dealing with personally. And so we basically decided to christen these people, give them training, help them understand here's how you deal with people in your stream who might be having a crisis or something, and basically be a good ambassador of that particular issue. Because one of the reasons I joined Take This is because in my interactions with thousands of developers worldwide and gamers and the public is that mental health issues have a very strong undercurrent that we're seeing in a lot of problems. And we, of course, in the West especially, just pretend it doesn't happen, unless unfortunately a celebrity commits suicide. We talk about it for a week and then go back to doing whatever we were doing. but we're trying to kind of push that conversation forward. But I think what's been really cool is to see the streaming community in particular really lead that and be very open about discussing it.
Yeah, and it's that piece of voice, right? We have a whole new type of person who's bringing their voice into the space, and I think we're seeing great outcomes because of the streamers having that voice.
Fantastic. So the last question on the subject of the communities, how do we as developers empower these communities to drive change?
I think that, so I was talking about Ken at Microsoft, who's a designer there that we've worked with over the years. He has this saying where it says, if you want a player or a community to do something in the game, just reward them for doing that thing. So, because that's what we're all after as gamers a lot of times. We want that XP or we want that loot or whatever it is. You can tie those rewards directly to behaviors that you want players to see. I think that the best example of this for me over the last several years is the design of Journey. So I highly encourage if you guys are interested in this topic, go Google the development and design post-mortems from that game Journey, because Genova, the creator of that game, he had this vision intentionally from the beginning of wanting to create only positive social interactions in a multiplayer game. And a lot of what he did initially in Journey is he just wired up things in a traditional way. He let players interact with each other in traditional ways, he let them chat, he let them do other things. And what he saw, which is what we see a lot of times in these communities, is the emergence of griefing and just kind of awful behavior from an anonymous set of players. What he did is he then made a set of intentional choices in Journey that disallowed those negative behaviors and only allowed and rewarded positive social interactions. And every gameplay session that I've had and that people describe in that game, they're only ever positive because he disallows it and rewards only those positive reinforcing behaviors. So I actually think as game developers we have tremendous power. I clearly, of course, saw this at my time in Zynga as well. As you guys know, Zynga actually bought Words of Friends. I was there for a few years. The power that Zynga had to shape and direct their communities was just unbelievable at scale. They could basically cause any behavior they wanted by incentivizing and rewarding that particular behavior using the gameplay mechanics and design. And for me, going all the way back to the Ultima Online days and see what a wild west of that can look like. I think that we have a responsibility to shape these communities in positive directions, and we can because we touch the lives of so many people and children.
There's a game that I'm aware of that's being developed in Canada called Destiny's Sword, and it's a fighting game, and it's combat and all that stuff. But the twist is that it's the characters that you're controlling. It's not about leveling them up and giving them greater powers and everything. It's managing their ability to fight. So in a realistic fashion, your team, you've got the warrior and the stealth person, all that stuff. They suffer PTSD. They suffer anxiety when you send them back to battle. If they're really proficient at what they do and you keep sending them in time after time, eventually they'll refuse to go and say, I need a break. I've been fighting too much. I don't want to do this. You gotta back off. And it's fascinating that they're building that dynamic into the game to basically show that this kind of relentless use of your characters like this, there's a cost to it. There's a mental cost, a physical cost. And again, it's kind of the foundation there was to build some sense of empathy. And the creator of the game is a veteran, and it's basically expressing his own experience through this method.
So I want to, unless there's anything else that the panelists would like to say, I'd like to open the floor to questions.
One of the things I wanted to engage and ask, how you guys engage challenges, especially in a community where you've been small for a long time, for a lot of people, as it gets more diverse, as it gets bigger, as it invites more people. They feel scared, they feel negatively reacting to more down road. This is something I wanted, that I had. How would you guys kind of engage that zero-sum stereotype or stigma?
That's a good question. I guess for me, I'll start by saying it's absolutely the case. I think that, we were just talking about this morning, that right now, those folks who do feel under attack, they feel like there's this thing and it was mine, and now who are all these people that are coming in and claiming that they're part of this community and this group that I've been a part of, and they feel threatened, and there's a lot of negativity and lashing out there, and I don't know, this is obviously happening across so many different topics right now. I tend to think that the word that Katie was using, empathy, is really the key.
I'll say that I believe that as our industry matures, we will have other disciplines that will be part of the design process. So we will always have experts who can help cover things like, mental stability and psychology and whatnot right into the development process.
Hi, I'm a software engineer, but that's sort of touching the question, I guess. So I think the advent of where you're going with games is similar but more interactive to what happened with data journalism. I feel like as data became a bigger and bigger topic with more and more processing power, data journalism became a thing because simple people who didn't understand or couldn't reach out to certain areas were exposed to a lot of data and a lot of information that allowed them to see the world for what it is. And as you're collecting data now in games, do you ever see a future in which you'll be able to share the impact that each individual gamer has made to a certain goal, like the amount of research done for this reversing the genetic code? Or I also want to liken it to you leave your computer up to render cycles in an animation, just like a Blender farm or something like that. Do you see something like that?
Yeah, exactly. That's actually what our platform does today. So you can actually see the contribution that you're making. And so you're part of the community. That community is participating, going towards a goal, and everybody's actions then accumulate to allow that community to understand actually the impact that they're having. And not only do we use the decisions that people are making in the games, their own intuition in that, but we can also crowdsource the CPU usage to combine those two together and create even new experiences and allow us to solve problems that we've never been able to tackle by combining both human and machine together to the same problem. So yes, without a doubt, that's the future forward.
Player attribution on Mixer too is something I'm constantly looking at. So how do we have people feel like because they showed up today, the world is a different place, that game world is a different place, and they actually have that impact. So we're looking at that, everything from putting their votes on the screen and showing behaviors that were completed, actually putting their name right up on the screen. My gamer tag is sweet, so I can actually drop in an enemy, right? You'll see sweet spawn an enemy, or you can see sweet spawn help, So we're actually starting to get there, but I think it can be so much more meaningful.
Thank you very much. This topic is important.
You remember that game called Penguin? Several of you guys may have remembered it. And that company was actually an incredible company. Part of their mission was to nurture and protect childhood. That was kind of built into the company. And they used to do this thing in Club Penguin where they would encourage their young players to give coins, which is an in-game currency, back to the company in service of charitable donations. And I remember seeing that at the time, and I just thought it was so incredible because not only were they helping the world by donating to charity with part of their revenue, but they were literally teaching children to be charitable through the game, and they turned it into a community event. Can we reach this threshold and milestone, and then we'll all celebrate together because this thing will happen. And that's just an example of that incentivizing behavior. It can have such an impact on the community. It's great. Next question.
I really like what you said about Journey, and I personally believe that games can be used to change culture, and the way that it can drive human behavior. And I was just wondering, when it comes to competitive games, is there room for developers to use game design to build more positive culture going forward, or is that just not possible for the major competitors?
Sure, it's possible.
Well, I think there's, on one level, it's we're human beings and we're competitive. I don't think that's going away. So, but can we encourage healthy competition, good sportsmanship? Absolutely. That can be engineered into the community. You've seen things with Riot Games when they change their community rules so that they actually reward people for calling out people who are not doing, not contributing positively to the environment. And so I think the more that companies can step up and develop systems, I think there needs to be some degree of automation. There's a company called Spirit AI, for example, based in the UK, that's actually using AI to identify negative behaviors in communities and try and basically flag them better and faster and root them out, and basically kind of sideline these people while humans can then investigate what exactly are they doing and evaluate their behavior in context. But I think we can totally work on that and do a much better job. And I think a lot of companies are striving for that because they know that the survival of their game is the survival of their community. And they've got to have a positive community or else it's not going to work.
It's time for one more question. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I mean, so toxic communities have tanked so many games.
Yeah.
It's really in the
Can I
commercial
say
cycle.
one more thing? Or I got mine. Just I mean, okay. So, do you believe that like some game communities, do you believe they're inherently toxic, or do you think game designers can build from the ground up and design a game to have a more positive community, like something instead of just doing like damage control? Do you believe that's possible?
Well, I firmly believe, yeah, we design the games, we can design them to have a less toxic environment. There will always be people who bring their toxicity into every community. So can we figure out ways to gateway that? Absolutely.
And community is a living thing, right? So it's not just build the game and then watch and see what happens with the community. It's about that engagement with the community and actively looking at what's happening and managing that to make sure that you limit that toxicity.
So I'm going to have to cut it. I've got the time signal that you have somewhere in the Travis, you have to run to your
Dude, we gotta run through the megathon round.
And so if you did have a question, for us, we would, we'll meet you out front and we'll answer your question. So
I've got a split, but I'm only in a handful. I've got a stack of these therapeutic game guides. I would encourage you to take one of these. I'll leave a stack of my cards here too. If you guys have questions, if you want to shoot me an email after.